Hello and welcome to Zak's Traders Cafe. Today I'm joined by Oliver Friesen, who is CEO at Gold Metal Resources, a company which is relatively new to the market. I think just a couple of months of excitement and joy for shareholders of gold and metal so far. Hopefully there'll be much more. But you're off to a good start, Oliver, and you're just here to show us your latest July 2023 corporate presentation.
Yeah, well, thanks for chatting again, Zach. I figured we'd just do a quick run through today. But as you mentioned, we've been quite active since we listed about just over 2 months ago now.
Yeah.
And there's been lots of developments which are now captured in the presentation that's in front of you now.
Okay, well let's go through it.
Perfect. So this is the sort of the first overview slide. The main change that's occurred in the last about week and a half here was we've acquired an additional asset in Nevada. That is the Kibby Basin project. So now we have 5 projects in the portfolio. I think very important just to note here the ownership, very clean ownership of all of these assets. So Pilot Mountain, which is our flagship asset, which hosts the largest undeveloped tungsten resource in the United States of America, is 100% owned. The new lithium asset that we've acquired is also 100% owned. Garfield and Stonewall are 100% owned. And then Golconda Summit, you'll see we have the option to earn 100%. So we have really clean ownership. The main reason for that being we want to be in control of not only the exploration of these assets, but more importantly down the line here, hopefully when we're in the opportunity or have the opportunity to monetize these assets, we're once again in the driver's seat. So you'll see the spatial distribution of the assets within the state of Nevada. It's important to note that Nevada is the top ranked mining jurisdiction in the world. So great place to explore, great place to develop, and I think most importantly, great place to actually put mines into production. So you'll see here the plethora of these little mine symbols here. You can see that Nevada is a very active state when it comes to mining. So in northern Nevada here, these are mostly gold mines, and a particular type of gold called Carlin type gold. So you'll see our Golconda property is in the heart of Carlin type gold country. And we'll go into a bit more detail as to why this is so significant a bit later in the presentation. And then the other 3 assets are within the Walker Lane mineral belt, much more base metal rich. Things like copper, tungsten, zinc, things like that are found in this part of Nevada. So that's just a quick overview of what we have in the portfolio in terms of projects. But let's just jump into Pilot Mountain specifically. Reason being, this is our flagship asset and is a very, very important critical metal strategy that we're developing here at Golden Metal Resources. And I think this slide here really encompasses why investors should be so excited about what we're doing here at the company. So there's a few things just to point out here, Zach. First of all, the current in-ground resource stands at 12.53 million tons at 0.27% tungsten trioxide. Now that comes with pretty significant copper, silver, and zinc credits, all of which are recoverable based on the metallurgical work that's been completed at the property. So that's the largest undeveloped tungsten resource in the US, which is very significant. Now, another really important factor to consider right now is the United States currently has no domestic primary production of tungsten. So there's 0 active currently producing tungsten mines in the US. So all of the tungsten that the US consumes obviously comes from elsewhere. Where does it come from? Well, it just so happens that China is currently the largest miner and producer of tungsten in the entire world, producing just north of about 85% of total global market share. So very significant global player within the tungsten space. And more importantly, the United States' biggest import partner is in fact China. Now, why is that so important? Well, I think investors that are listening are probably well aware that there's been a very monumental shift in the last about 2 years in the wake of the Russia-Ukraine war. And now countries are looking to shore up and domesticate the supply chain of critical battery and defense metals. And that's a really important caveat there, Zach, because tungsten is very much a defense metal. As you'll see in this presentation, about almost 10% of tungsten currently makes its way into the defense industry. So the picture is starting to kind of show itself. It's getting really interesting. And a really important thing to note here, and you'll see in this 4th bullet down here, if you can see my cursor, is that as of January 1st, 2026, so less than 2.5 years away, the United States Department of Defense is actually banning the import of tungsten for DoD uses from China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. So when you're banning effectively the import of tungsten from your biggest import partner, well, listeners can do the math as to what that potentially could do to the tungsten supply in the U.S. And further, that should signify and show to listeners today how important this asset is, because the U.S. has no domestic primary production. We have the largest deposit, and as of January 1st, 2026, they're banning imports from China. So that should give listeners here a really good kind of overview as to why they should be interested in gold and metal resources and this asset specifically.
Doesn't that mean that actually you could just go to sleep now until 2026, because you're just sitting on an asset and just wait for the apple to fall out of the tree. The shortage will be there in the US, and somebody will have to knock on your door.
It's not a bad strategy, Zach, and that would probably work out in our favor if we did that. However, we're a pretty ambitious group, and the reality is the U.S. government and a lot of these DoD agencies are going, oh, wait a second, 2.5 years from now, we need to be getting tungsten from somewhere else. So they're actually, they're looking forward and saying, we need to start to solve this problem now. And that's how we think we can really fit into that strategy, is say, hey, we have a very advanced asset. It's the biggest on U.S. soil. It's in Nevada. Let's work together. Let's find a way to get some non-dilutive funding to hopefully allow us to really fast track exploration and, most importantly, development here, so that tungsten from Pilot Mountain can ultimately end up in the U.S. supply chain sooner rather than later.
And what do you know at this stage what the lead-in time would be to production, or is that a $64,000 question?
Yeah, I can't disclose that too much. What I can say on that front, though, Zach, is the previous operator, they were actually pushing forward this project to development. That was their goal. That was back in about 2018, and they essentially ran out of funds. It was a tough market at the time. But because of that, a lot of the really important de-risking work that's associated with putting a project into production, including the metallurgical studies, things like the environmental baseline, striking deals or having contacts with, Nevada Power, things like that. Those things have all been done. And a lot of projects that, the listeners probably have seen elsewhere in the UK market or abroad, a lot of those really important de-risking things have not been completed. Another one I should mention is that environmental baseline work was done. There's absolutely no impediments to development. So a lot of these boxes that need to be checked have been checked,
so
which means that when we want...
Much of the heavy lifting has been done already.
Exactly. So they had, I believe, quoted between a 2 and 3 year period of time before they could get it into production. So, that potentially could be what it is today, or potentially longer or shorter. I don't exactly know. But a lot of the heavy lifting has been done. And I think the most important thing is even if you're 2 to 3 years in general, when you look at putting projects into development, is very, very short life cycle, and potentially lines up with when the DoD is banning the imports of tungsten from China.
As I said, even if you did nothing, the relative value and strategic value of the asset at Pilot Mountain would keep going up anyway.
Exactly. You nailed it there, Zach. So we'll just quickly flip on to the next slide here, which covers a bit more details about the actual Pilot Mountain project itself. One important thing just to note here, and this was something that I think we discussed in a previous interview, Zach, but as of June 28th, we signed an LOI with United States-based Global Tungsten and Powders, in respect of a tungsten concentrate offtake. Now, why is that important? Well, that's another one of those really important de-risking elements to have an offtake agreement. And more importantly, we've signed it with what is the Western world's largest tungsten processing company. So a fantastic partner to have on the project. And I encourage everyone to have a read of this little blurb here, but I'll just quickly summarize it. And effectively, what we've also agreed to do is work on a Western world supply chain. And the reason that's so important is a lot of times, certain countries will mine a metal and then it gets shipped to China to get processed or to have that concentrate actually dealt with. However, what we're looking to do with GTP as our partner is focus on a Western world supply chain. So the ideal goal would be that we mine the tungsten concentrate from our project and it goes to GTP's facility, which is located on US soil for processing. And then that tungsten metal can actually be shipped directly to US partners. So very important for the security of the metal to have a fully integrated Western world supply chain. And that's definitely something that we're working on with our partners GTP. So there's a lot to go through in this presentation. Obviously, I want to give kind of just the highlights today. But what I'll quickly highlight here is the fact that this is the outline of the project here, Zach, this black outline. And the 4 zones that you see here, Good Hope, Garnet, Gunmetal, Desert Scheelite, host the current in-ground resource at Pilot Mountain, with Desert Scheelite, this small red outline here, hosting approximately 85% of the current 12.53 million tons that's in the ground. Now, the important thing just to note here with this particular slide and with this map is we did an IP survey at the end of 2022 and into 2023. The reason being, we believe there's some very significant exploration targets to significantly grow what's currently in the ground. And that's very much a priority of ours. Obviously, the development pathway is a very important one, but we are an exploration company, and we think we can very much grow the size of the current in-ground resource. So what you'll see here, and I encourage listeners to go to some of our press releases that we've put over the last about 6 weeks here, which highlight more in detail some of these exploration targets that we've now identified. But the main takeaway point here is we've outlined these targets in white here based on their geophysical signature. And it's also just really important to note that, we're doing geophysics over existing known mineralization. So when we see a geophysical signature that very much lines up or is coincident with known in-ground tungsten resources, we can look for that same signature elsewhere on the property. And if we find it, we have there's a very high degree of confidence that if we go and drill that, that area could potentially be similar or the same as to what we're seeing elsewhere on the property. So it's a bit of a technical point to note, but I think it's a really important one because we have a much higher degree of confidence as to what these geophysical signatures could be leading us to. So you'll see here that the red outlines are the current known in-ground resources, and then the white ones are the size of the new targets that we've identified. So I think the main takeaway point here is just the sheer size of these exploration targets that we've identified, all which are caused by very intriguing geophysical signatures. So there's very much an exploration story here as well, Zach, and we think it's a very important one. So we're pushing that forward in tandem with a lot of those exciting development pathways that we discussed a few slides ago. And I'll quickly move on to our Kibby Basin lithium project. And the reason for this is a new acquisition that we've added to the portfolio. Lithium is obviously a very intriguing metal right now. It's a battery metal. And so what's interesting about this particular acquisition is we were doing some work on our flagship Pilot Mountain project. And sure enough, just a few kilometers down the road, there's a large playa lake. Now, a playa lake is sort of just this big salt pan, and you find them in Nevada, typically and they're associated with known lithium mineralization. And in Nevada, there's multiple types of lithium mineralization that are found. However, one of the most important ones in Nevada and globally is lithium brine. And lithium brine is exactly what we're looking for here at our Kibby Basin lithium project. Actually, our currently operating lithium mine in Nevada. Now, there's multiple in the development pathway right now. I think Nevada is going to be a very significant player within the lithium industry quite quickly here, and it already is with some of the large projects that they have. But this Silver Peak lithium mine, which is about 60 to 70 kilometers from our project, is within the Clayton Valley, and that's an operational lithium brine mine. So it's the right part of the world. We're in the right jurisdiction for lithium brines. And most importantly, and we're going to announce further results of our historical data compilation across the Kibby Basin project. But the main thing to note here, and if you look at, if listeners want to go read more on this project, and go and read the most recent RNS that covers this. But the most important takeaway here is there's a drill hole that was completed in 2022, which identified and made the discovery of a very significant lithium brine mineralization. It was a 169 meter thick zone of lithium brine. And really importantly, this hole is about 250 kilometers from our claim boundary. Now, that's just one thing, but it's also really important to note that lithium brines, and the reason that we acquire these projects, are typically found over very expansive areas. So they're found within these basins, and lithium brines are open typically in multiple directions because they're sort of a horizontal horizon where you find these brines. So the fact that we've staked the ground immediately south where we believe the lithium brines continue on to is very prospective and is a very exciting target for gold and metal resources. So lithium, I think, is a very exciting element to be chasing right now. I think we have a very bona fide and exciting exploration opportunity here. Another great thing to note is, this project is about 3-4 kilometers from Pilot Mountain, accessible by well-maintained roads. So there's certainly synergies that we can tap into as we look to push both of these projects forward and potentially have crews that can work on both projects in tandem, which will certainly save us in exploration costs. So definitely want to keep an eye on. We'll be putting out some further news on this and really highlighting why we've acquired these projects and where we think we can go with these in terms of exploring them and looking to make further discoveries within this basin. Now, I'll just quickly touch on Golconda Summit, and then we'll probably wrap things up here, Zach. But this is another really important one in the portfolio. And I think as I talk about Kibby and Golconda and even the other ones in the portfolio, with Pilot Mountain being such a fantastic flagship asset, it should just signify to listeners the quality that we have in our portfolio. We're not just a one-trick pony, even though we think we can drive a significant amount of value, shareholder value, by pushing Pilot Mountain forward. But there's a lot of really interesting assets in the portfolio that we're going to be exploring as well. We think we can add a lot of value with these as well. The main takeaway point from Golconda Summit is, and if I quickly highlight this middle part of the page here, Zach, so you'll see that in 1989, they trenched at surface 7.6 meters at just under 20 grams per ton. Another interval returned about 15.2 meters at 7.1 grams per ton. So very significant gold within what are called the upper plate rocks. Now, upper plate rocks are non-reactive host rocks within northern Nevada. And once again, as I mentioned earlier in this presentation, we're looking for what's called Carlin-type gold. So just to put in perspective how significant these deposits are within Nevada, while Turquoise Ridge is just to the northeast of us, that's about 13 million ounces of gold at 5 grams per ton. Go towards the southeast, you'll find the Lone Tree Mine. That's about 4.2 million ounces of gold produced. SSR Mining has about 6 million ounces of gold. I actually used to live in Nevada. Zach, I used to work for Barrick Gold at a mine not too far off the screen, the Cortez Hills. That's north of 15 million ounces of gold. Gold Strike Mine is off the screen as well, but within northern Nevada, that's north of 50 million ounces of gold. So it just should signify to listeners how significant these Carlin-type deposits are. And we have a really fantastic opportunity essentially at the confluence of these two major Carlin trends. And the most important thing is the lower plate rocks, which is where you find your Carlin-type deposits, have never been drill tested at our property. So we're really looking forward to doing some low-cost RC drilling, testing for Carlin-type gold mineralization within the lower plate rocks, because when you find gold in the upper plate, it's been remobilized typically from the lower plate rocks below. So a really significant exploration opportunity here. And when I've been presenting the gold and metal story, the gold bugs really have been latching onto this story, and they're like, let's get, when are you working on it? When are you drilling? Because it's a really exciting one. And as mentioned, I used to work in northern Nevada and understand these deposits quite intimately. So they're really exciting ones, and they can be really large prizes. We'll just quickly, we'll flip through Garfield and as well as Stonewall. They're really interesting assets. We actually, the first press release we put out, Zach, was covering some really exciting results from Garfield. However, I want to keep things short today, so I'll just flip through them. Nevada, we've touched on. Just a quick corporate overview to kind of wrap things up. The really important takeaway here, Zach, is our corporate structure. When we first incorporated this company over 2.5 years ago now, it was very important that we structured the business in a way that would allow us to have success into the future. That meant no zero cost-based shares. You'll see here in terms of our actual cap structure, well, 62% is held by London-listed Power Metal Resources. That position is held under a 12-month hard lock-in. On top of that, we have two high net worth individuals that took 9% of our IPO. So in total, that comes to about 71% of the company that's effectively held by very, very supportive partners, leaving about 29% free float. However, a chunk of those shares are held by management, close associates and things like that. So really, really well-structured company, which I think is something that investors should really focus on when they look for the next company to invest in, is how is this company structured? And I think also importantly, we completed our IPO just over 2 months ago, Zach. We raised just under 2 million quid at 8.5 pence. And the company's trading at about 8.25, 8.5 right now. So I think it provides a really attractive entry opportunity. We've added a lot of value to the portfolio with the offtake agreement, with the acquisition of the lithium project since we've IPO'd. And we're very much an exploration forward focused company. We're very active and we've put out a lot of very exciting news, and that will continue through the summer months and then into the fall here, as I think we're gearing up for what should be a really exciting time in the sector. So we'll leave it at that, Zach. If you had any questions, or we can kind of
just
wrap this up.
I think the key points there. You spent many minutes going through the portfolio, and you've got all that in the portfolio for £7 million, which seems to be pretty good value there. And also since you IPO just 2 months ago, you've added value to the company. So if it's the same share price but added value, then maybe there's a disconnect there that people can think about. So I think that's the offtake agreement, lithium aspect. Lithium is obviously very hot. You showed the Tesla, the Gigafactory not far off down the road. So it doesn't require Einstein to work out that you're in a good place. But that is great, and let's do this again next time you update the market, and we'll see how we go.
Sounds good, Zach. Yeah, thanks for taking the time today, and I encourage listeners to check us out on Twitter, or go to our website, goldenmetalresources.com. We're very active on socials, making sure we're amplifying the message. So you'll find a lot of really good and useful information on our Twitters or on our website.
Oliver Friesen, CEO of Gold Metal Resources. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Zach.